So let me just ask you a kind of strategic question really quick.
Yeah.
And then I want to get more issue heavy here. But you mentioned you have experience on neighborhood council. What made you decide you want to go Congress versus, say, something like city council or something like that? Like, what made you pick Congress?
Yeah, well, in the terms of we have a lot of great progressive leaders on different ballot candidates across the country, and here in LA we have Nithya Raman, who's running for city council in CD4. She's amazing. If you live in Los Angeles, um, she's great. Check her out. We have Godfrey, who's running for state assembly. Fatima, who's running for state assembly. Angelica Congress. I'm doing a name drop. Constantine Burbank City Council. Well, for the district that I live in, Gil Cedillo is still in office, and I mean, I could have waited 2 years and ran for that spot, or perhaps the state assembly. But state assembly, Godfrey's got it. I hope he wins and he would be my representative if he wins, Godfrey. But I think, in the sense of, because of what Representative Ocasio-Cortez has shown and done for us, in the sense of the urgency of how many people, how much more we need to quote unquote expand the squad, or actually have people that represent the people's interests and are fighting for the people's interests in Congress. That's what Representative Ocasio-Cortez and some other recent Congress representatives, like Representative Ilhan Omar and others, have shown us how, like, in the sense that our leaders haven't really been standing for us as they could be, and as notably as they should be doing. And so it's inspired and empowered probably a record number of down ballot congressional candidates running for office all across the country. So it's not just reflective of LA. We have people all over the country, in New York, in Florida, in all states, running for office, pushing for change, because it's building upon this realization, a deeper awareness of, hey, it's not normal to wake up every day in deep-rooted chronic economic anxiety, wondering if I'm okay for the next month or 2 months financially. That's not supposed to be normal life. And I think the American people, the masses of us, are recognizing that. And so we're slowly waking up and realizing, hey, yes, we can make local change in our local offices and races. Kind of particularly with the circumstances that I have, it was in the sense of, hey, there's also a desperate urgency and need in Congress right now as well, because we have so many. Now you can't tell the difference between a corporately funded Democrat and a corporately funded Republican anymore, because they basically vote for the same thing. And in the sense of, when it comes to really putting your money where their mouth is, we could be allocating resources and money to the people right now, but we're not. And what's the cause of that? And so until we get more people-powered candidates in Congress, like, nothing's really going to change. And so that probably is one of the first and foremost reasons, Ron. The second would be in terms of what races were available. And then third, just the condition that we're in as a country. I feel that there should be more people that have this ownership mentality, and not this kind of, oh, this is going to be my next career, and then after this I'm going to do this seat, like my opponent, who's already filed for lieutenant governor race of 2026 for California. So in the sense of, we this desperate urgency of where our country's going, because we really need a FDR's New Deal again right now, because it's gone so bad. We haven't had an external world conflict like World War II since World War II, that's really affected our country inside and out. And so the reason why we're here is because we've let our elected officials lead us this way. And so, yeah, so for those reasons stated, Ron.
Well, do you think that there are some serious structural issues that are leading to this? I mean, I think that the way you're describing our contemporary electoral politics is 100% right on. And I think a lot of that is because of the systemic way that it works. It really does. It attracts a very mediocre person most of the time, because not only does being a blank suit who just takes the corporate money, not only is that smiled upon, in many cases, it's pretty much mandatory, because if you really get in there to fight the good fight, you eventually get screwed over or redistricted, or worse, just ask someone like a Dennis Kucinich. And, David, I'm not telling you anything you don't know here, but the Democratic establishment spent $50 million to try to make sure people like you don't win, to try to make sure grassroots candidates don't win. So I think recognizing these systemic issues is important. What are some ways that we can really combat that?
Yeah, well, and what plays to, I mean, unfortunately, what plays to our to our empowerment and motivation to go further and to fight harder is the fact of the horrible conditions that we have now. And I'm not. And when people get to know me, and Ron, you'll probably say this too later, but when people get to know me, I am the most optimistic, positive, always smiling type of guy. I don't know if you could already tell now, but I mean, except moments where I get really just angry at certain things that the government's doing, but besides that, I'm really positive. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but the reality also is that our district is one of the poorest out of the 435 congressional districts. We're the 5th lowest in education. We have over 40,000 brothers and sisters living unhoused in our city alone. And so with these things in mind, I think the people are groaning. They're looking for help, but they're not finding it. So one, we have that. The actual conditions, people are wanting change. Like, it's inevitable right now. They no people don't trust the government. When you're calling people to get out the vote, immediately when they find out you're a candidate, they hang up. They're so jaded, not interested. There's no trust in government whatsoever. And so a lot of people are looking for new change. They're looking for people who will be fighters, people who haven't been in career politicians. And I think that works in our favor in the sense of people are looking for change. Number two, we live in a time and age where everything's digital and easily shareable, and you can't play the same tricks on us. For example, like 20 years, if you were the type of person sending out 8 mailers with pictures of Senator Sanders and Representative Ocasio-Cortez's pictures and quotes on your mailers as if they endorsed you, it might have been hard to combat that. But as those things, like, we can talk about it online, and it's circulated and disseminated a lot faster. And so I think for us as grassroots campaigns, what we can, although we don't have the money, we have so much more in terms of energy, passion, power, vision, values, volunteers. I remember, Ron, I was sharing this with our team of volunteers earlier. I remember back in the primary cycle when it was 5 candidates in December, January, when I was sign waving, it was myself on the intersection, and I was jumping up for hand waves and honks. But now
you had your own Pete Buttigieg dance. You were just doing it yourself.
Yeah, and so, but now we have, Ron, and I'm so thankful. Now we have 200 plus people volunteering for us, and whether it be phone banking, text banking, sign waving, website tech, in whichever ways, like, we have 200 volunteers helping us. And I think during this pandemic, yes, it threw us off and it veered us off course when it started, because after we won second, we were set up with our whole campaign plan, but COVID hit and we just immediately moved towards community relief efforts. And but despite that, that's where we were able to build community stronger. We have volunteers within the district, out of the district. And so it's been really great. And so kind of reminding us and reminding them that, hey, we have the passion, fire, energy, hearts of so many people fighting for this campaign, and then the bigger movement, whether it be Angelica's campaign, Shahid's campaign, whoever's congressional campaign, Liam's, since he was on the Zoom chat as well. Like, we're the 4 congressional if I'm leaving out somebody, I apologize, but I believe we're the 4 progressional.
You can't remember everyone all the time.
Yeah, I believe we're the 4 progressional California congressional candidates: Shahid, myself, Angelica, and Liam. As far as the new candidates, I mean, there are other Congress representatives who are progressive, like Rokana, but in terms of new candidates who are running. And so I think it's very hopeful and empowering for us. And so the ways to help and combat is just to share about us. If you have family or friends living in CD34, let them know. I think what we're doing right now, Ron, every day we wake up and we kind of are pivoting because our opponent's doing some weird tactic campaign. Like yesterday, he sent out a text blast to Korean constituents in our district saying that one of the major Korean newspapers, Korea Daily, endorsed him, but it's not true, and I verified it with Korea Daily yesterday. And so he's doing things like that, throwing off our Korean constituents off track, telling them that he was endorsed. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, that's an outright lie. It's not even misleading, it's an outright lie. And so So we're just kind of dealing with those things that the establishment is doing. But it's okay though. We're still very hopeful and positive, and we're going to continue with that hopeful, positive message.
Have you had any direct interactions with your opponent? Like, have you guys debated or anything like that?
No debate. I mean, we've requested a debate before, but no response. And so,
Of course.
yeah, I mean, we would love to have a debate, but I think it's important for the people to hear who their candidates are and what they stand for, and be able to make the decision for themselves instead of being bombarded with well, all this campaign stuff. And that's also something that I really want to work on after getting into Congress. Before we can overturn Citizens United, there are other ways in terms of expenditures, in terms of setting the number of. There's no reason any candidate should be sending 8 mailers in a week to 300,000 voters. That's a waste of paper. That's I don't even. That's a couple million copies out there. But in that sense, I think what's very the deeper, and I feel like I'm like a Marianne. I remember her saying this when she was running for the presidential primaries last year. The deeper she gets into it, the more she realizes everything's messed up, and it's kind of the same for me, I realize. But I think that shouldn't deter us at all. I think that motivates us to go further into it all. To give you some perspective, Ron, it cost me last primary cycle $20,000 to put a 250-word statement in the ballot booklet, in the sample ballot booklet. $20,000.
Wow.
So there's no way like somebody, it's just it's set against us for anybody from the community to really run, unless you really have money. And so I think we're entering a time, and I'm very hopeful that it's a time where the tides will now start changing, where we'll be able to deflate the influence of money on politics, because that's the first and biggest step that we need right now. But with that, we still need to work on other issues that the people really need help with.
Well, what's the biggest all-encompassing solution for that? Because, I mean, Citizens United, of course, needs to be overturned. I'm for that 110%. However, a lot of people forget that just gets us back to the way it was in the early 2000s. Like, overturning Citizens United, it's important, but I mean, I would say you got to go a big step further, and it needs to be completely publicly funded elections with only small dollar donors and a limited amount of what they can give.
Yeah, so something like a publicly, this is funny. I'm laughing because I'm laughing honestly, and I'm not doing it out of a lower than thing, but to me it just doesn't make sense. My opponent is for public funded elections too, but yet he takes more corporate PAC money than a majority of Republicans in Congress. Mm-hmm. So I kind of smile when I think of that. But yeah, no, we need to go towards publicly funded elections, and there's different ways we can do that. One of the ways that we're exploring it is through democracy dollars, something that Andrew Yang had proposed before, where every American and of course we're still. We definitely need to move towards public funding and financing of elections. And how do we do that? And how do we best implement that, I think, is the next crucial step that we need to discuss. One of the ways is democracy dollars, where every American is given 100 democracy dollars. And from that, they're able to donate $10 to David Kim's campaign, $5, $20 to Nithya's campaign, and whatnot, in that sense, where even with us, with grassroots campaigns, do we like asking our constituents or people, individuals, for money when people are hurting right now as well? No. And so I think to really lessen the whole, to not only will we eliminate the impact of corporate money washing out elections, but then also helping our communities and constituents as well with publicly funding those as well. And I think with that, you'll have a better outcome of focus, of attention. People will be able to better focus and be more informed on how they vote. And why don't we have public debates that are a requirement? Why don't we have all those things that can make our representatives more responsible and be held more accountable? And so I think it's also a more integrative approach in terms of that, and also defining on in other areas, like what certain expenditures are allowable or not allowable, and defining that more, because there's a lot of gray areas in the FAC rules. So yeah, there's definitely different ways that we can start with that, and it's not just about overturning Citizens United.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and